Anything you want to make sure that I ask him?
You spent so much of your life hiding who you truly were. Did you feel like you were able to be your true self on the campaign trail?
A hometown boy who went to Harvard and became a Rhodes Scholar, only to return to the city where he grew up.
He's also a newlywed.
I made Pete promise that we would have fun.
This is the only chance you'll ever get to vote for a Maltese-American left-handed Episcopalian gay war veteran Mayor Millennium.
It's a leap going from being a mayor to being a presidential candidate, but I realized I had something to offer that was just different. When I talked about coming out, that was for everybody who's tried to figure out how to be who they are. The challenge, of course, is how do you master the game without it changing you?
A developing story. One candidate is dealing with a crisis back home.
There had been an officer-involved shooting.
Get them off the streets!
You looked a little too green, like you weren't ready. Are you saying things that project the right kind of warmth? Are you connecting with people?
My way of coming at the world, the stronger an emotion is, the more private it is.
I've never met someone who thinks so deeply about what he can do for other people.
You're going to tell every single gay kid in this country that it gets better.
You're looking at someone who, as a young man, wondered if something deep inside of him meant that he would forever be an outsider. And now you were looking at that same young man, happily married, asking for your vote for President of the United States.
Just to let you know, there is a cow in the audience.
Do we know whose side the cow is on?
There's a lot at stake.
How do you do there, Jesse?
Hey, Adam.
How are you? My name is
I'm
Adam
good.
Shartoff with Filmwax. Well, how many years has it been since we overnighters? I know that much.
Yeah, I mean that's 2014. I don't think we talked during Boy State, did we?
No, I regret that, and I don't know how that slipped by. I'll have to get to my people about it, and
Yeah, talk to your people,
as
man.
they're going to roll, because
Head should roll.
let's
Head should roll.
cover Boy State and pretend that it's 2019 or whatever 20. That's actually 20, right? 2020? Did it come out?
2020 is the film. Yeah, it came out 2020.
That's so that period much shorter, because you had 6 years. I mean, every documentary has its own organic lifespan depending on the way things go. Here, I guess Boy State was more contained because they were all at this spot in one.
Yeah, Boy State was 6 days of principal photography, and Mayor Pete was about 90. I was
talking about overnighter, but yes, that's 90 days you're on the road with.
Overnighters was comparable to Pete. I mean, that's a really grueling longitudinal filmmaking. I mean, I like the Boy State model, and it just compresses.
Yeah.
I'd like to make more movies that way. I mean, I was really reluctant, frankly. You know the Overnighters. I was reluctant to make another movie this way because it's really hard, and just physically, it's an endurance test.
Right.
And I wasn't sure I had it in me, but the opportunity to have access to Pete, intimate access, was really one that I couldn't pass up. That's why I leaped at it, and. Frankly, I think I thought, as maybe he did himself, that he would flame out pretty quickly, and it would be over, and maybe we wouldn't even have a film. But
as did the Republican frontrunner, but that didn't happen either, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you mentioned access. So let's get right into it then. And by the way, nice to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
Nice to see you. I enjoyed talking to you years ago, and I was always looking forward to doing it again. So you get the access you get the green light, and this took over a course of time where, a number of approaches, I suppose, and then he's got, I guess, his team, and he gave the green light. But then there's the second type of access, which is trickier, of course, which is creating a relationship. Mm-hmm. Talk about a little bit, if you would. the ear that you have to develop for such a thing, because you can't be pushy, yet you can't be too laid back because you're not going to get anything.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, when we went to Pete for access, he really didn't have a staff, so it kind of helped. We were talking to the man himself. I mean, he had a campaign manager,
South Bend people, right? Yeah.
but basically like 3 people on the campaign. So it was really like, Pete, this is what we want to do. Are you up for it? And I guess the stakes probably felt low to him at that point. And he's also an unconventional candidate and plays by unconventional rules, and looked at my work and the work of my producers and felt like, okay, maybe we'll try this out. But you're right. It's like access. It's sort of theoretical access, because you still need to negotiate every day you shoot that access. And sometimes with the subject directly, sometimes in this case with the staff around him who have a very different idea of what you should be doing. And what was challenging for me, well, first of all, you have to build a relationship. I mean, that's what you're talking about too. And that takes time. And it's easier in, say, the overnighters, when Jay is just always in his church every day and I know where to find him, and he's, he sort of can't run from me. But in this case, Pete is running for president. He's got a lot on his plate and he's always moving. And just to keep up with him was a challenge. To be in the room with him was, even though he'd committed to that, was a challenge. To get to know him when he's got so many people around him asking for pieces of him, that's really hard too. And to be sensitive, but also pushy, like you're saying, that kind of delicate balance.
Persistent.
That delicate dance of
Right.
sort of
Right.
directing with living real people.
Trust and yada yada.
When I first met Pete, I met him, we started shooting immediately, but we hadn't really talked, and I introduced myself, and he was like, hi, and then that was it. It was like no small talk, and I was like, okay, I guess we'll get the get to know you part will happen later. And I took the long view, which helps. It's just patience and persistence, and at some point, Pete just kind of got used to having me around. And at some point, they really like having you around because you're there kind of writing history as it's happening. And this was really true at the end of the journey when things got tricky for Pete, who was going to drop out of the race. I thought most people would probably push me away at this point. And Pete brought me close. And I really respect that about his willingness to bring me close, even when things were difficult. You see that in the film earlier, too, when he's got to face angry Black residents in South Bend because there's been a police shooting. You see it in debate preparation when he's being challenged by his staff and not looking so good. So his willingness to keep me in the room when things look bad is a testament to his faith in the project, in me, I guess, his risk-taking. I'm not sure.
Right. As you mentioned, he didn't probably, well, I was going to say he probably didn't think he was going to last that long, but how would you join a presidential run without figuring you would? I mean, it's such an enormous undertaking. So having said that, as he was gaining into the primaries, right, and in Iowa, whatever, as he was starting to have some success, it must have been a surprise, but also very different scenario than if you're expecting him to peter out, Mayor Pete out, because right, I mean, your ability to keep up his staff was growing, obviously. Right? I imagine. I mean,
in the lifespan of the campaign, the staff went from 4 to 400. And I mean, it becomes an exponentially larger, more difficult operation to keep up with and to negotiate with. I mean, the core team around him pretty much stays the same, and that helps. But you're absolutely right that I think, even if you're an underdog, outsider candidate in a presidential campaign, you have to believe that you can win, or you wouldn't undertake this foolish endeavor. And I think that Pete certainly looked at the norms of American politics and could recognize they had been shattered by Obama and then again by Trump, and that anything was and is possible in presidential politics. And I think that you see Chasten say at some point, you're going to be the next president of the United States. And I think, there were probably times that people believe that, and maybe times where he doubted it. And I think that kind of tension is just what every candidate must negotiate and to sort of keep going, even in the moments that you doubt. It's easy to keep going in the moments that you're like doing well. It's the moments that you're being challenged are probably hard. And I think for me to see those moments were most interesting, right?
Let's just mention, right? I should have mentioned already, although we'll make it very known that the documentary Mayor Pete is going to premiere streaming on Amazon Prime Video November 12th. So when I was wondering as you were talking, yes, I was listening too, but I was wondering if I wonder if the candidate feels like, okay, and I guess they're not going to announce this, but maybe inside their head, they're thinking, okay, if I probably don't stand a great chance of winning, but I can make a difference. I'm gay. I'm from a small town. I'm, a veteran of the Navy. There's still, I can make a great impact, even if I only make it so far. Do you feel like maybe that was part of his feeling?
Well, you definitely don't make an impact by not running. And I think that.
Good.
I think to be in national political life, you have to build your profile. People have to meet you, understand who you are and what you're about. And I think Pete's message was resonant, is resonant. I mean, it built around both his connection to South Bend and his work there as mayor, both turning the community around to some degree, but also some of the challenges that you see in the film surface around the police shooting. So, you deal with some really significant, this is a Rust Belt city too. And, this is sort of America writ large and the problems of that city to some degree. And I think Pete had that experience. He felt like he could kind of cut across these different lines in American life based on that unusual profile that you talk about, all of the things that are Pete. South Bend kid, intellectual, Harvard Rhodes Scholar, Afghan war vet, sort of policy wonk, gay man, mayor millennial. It's a kind of unwieldy package, but adds up to something pretty interesting. And the message at the core of that is this campaign message, which I was interested in, and sort of came a little bit for me out of, frankly, the overnighters, also out of Boise State, is sort of like where is like goodness in American life? Where is kind of the center as our world seems to spin apart? Like how are we going to find a way forward? We know we have political leaders who will sow division and fear and hatred, and that's a time-honored path to political power. But what's the alternative? And Pete's message, based on his personal biography too, growing up as a closeted gay man in this fairly socially conservative place, sort of tapping into that personally and sort of finding a way to express that politically, seeing that resonated with people. That at the core of it was the message of the campaign. And you see him and Chasten kind of live that message. And of course, Pete had policy proposals, which were very well thought through. But I found a sort of core message and rooted in biography to be the most interesting thing to focus on in this film.
A big part of this the documentary, and you're following Pete, is you're not just following Pete, you're actually following Pete and Chasten who joins him on the road. And there's a couple of moments which really stand out. And one is this conversation they have. I'm not going to give away too much, don't worry, because I know that's, important not to do that. But there is a moment that stood out for me, which is where Pete was talking about his coming out, but in a way that was very, very different and extraordinarily personal, which is when he said that, he would have given, if he could have done anything not to be gay, he would have taken the pill or done whatever he had to do. And afterwards, Chasten approached him and talked to him about, like, it's kind of dark stuff you're getting there. And I just, that underlined that personal stuff was definitely not performative. There's none. This didn't come off performative. I wonder if that if that was true for his entire not personality, but his the persona. Long question.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I mean, for Pete's persona, or for you're talking about Pete.
Pete, yeah, well, Pete.
Yeah, well, I think
it seems like to be what you see is what you get, and I kind of assume that's true for Pete, but because he's so consistent.
Well, I think that documentary often relies on very performative subjects who are essentially, in a sense, comfortable being the center of attention, which Pete is, but also he's not emotionally demonstrative. He's quite reserved, and Chasten is quite different. And their combination, their opposite qualities, were really interesting to me, and how they relate to each other. I was just interested in. And one of the things that convinced me of the potential of the story of this as a film was that moment that you're describing that I shot very early on, where Pete gives this incredible personal speech about coming out. And afterwards, I was in the room privately, no one else in the room, me, Pete, and Chasten. I really just met them. And Chasten starts to talk to Pete about the speech. And I thought, wow, yeah, this is not a performative moment. This is a personal moment in their relationship, but actually relates to what's happening on stage in Pete's campaign, and who he is, and sort of everything is going on here. And I thought, if the film can live in this space, on this journey with them together, and Pete on the campaign, this will be really interesting. And it was hard, but they did continue to let me in, and Chasten became a kind of ally in that I would film conversations between the two of them, sometimes in more formal interview setups, but I would invite Chasten into the conversation, because I knew that if they talked to each other rather than Pete talked to me, we might get past Pete's kind of guardedness. And I think you do see that to some success. That was just a strategy I don't think I had planned on as a way of understanding Pete, was sort of Chasten becoming part of our one-on-one relationship, sort of this other, but it made sense because the relationship is at the center of the story emotionally.
And there are moments where you do see other, the police, the shooting, the police shooting of South Bend resident citizen, and the reaction from the community maybe more so, definitely pulls him out, and kind of starts to pierce some of this, the Kevlar kind of protective. But he also does talk about how this is really important if you're a politician too. I mean, you get a lot of great moments in the film. It's called Mayor Pete, by the way. It had its world premiere at the Chicago Film Festival, and then it was just this last few days ago. It was the opening night film at New Fest. So it's been on a terrific trajectory, right?
Yeah, it's just great to show it in the theater now, which is a different experience. Just to see how audiences connect with the story is different than, of course, our one-on-one platform viewing. So that's been really nice for me. There's actually a lot of laughs, which I really appreciate. I mean, it's not a comedy, but there's some Veep level moments in this film. Like they get stuck in an elevator. It's right before the first debate, and stuff that made me laugh.
A couple of Spinal Tap moments in there.
I mean, it wouldn't be
about like I was wondering. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Judge, but I was just wondering if their documentary, if you guys as their documentary team, if you guys were following another, and then you ran into another candidate, whether it was because what that did happen on the road, of course, on the campaign trail, but if you ran into another documentary team following another candidate, and because and I don't know if we have much. I think we have to wind down momentarily, but I was wondering also what other candidates made of you guys.
I know I haven't seen any of those other films emerge yet from that 2020 campaign, but I do think probably of the 20 candidates, probably 19 had documentary crews following them around. I'm glad we just beat them to the punch. I don't know, man. I mean, there's so many freaking cameras in America, politics too. It's like, it's sort of made for the camera, and which is something you have to guard against, because, you know, in a way, I measured the quality of the scene by sort of, if there were no cameras, then it was a good scene for me to pay attention to, or, you know, and then the quiet personal moments became much deeper and more profound. And the performative stuff in Iowa, the stump speeches, they're all interchangeable, frankly. It's really fighting for the moments that are surprising became hard. And because it's such a lockdown, scripted, kind of planned business to some degree, it's of course, always true in documentary, the unexpected is what's really interesting.
Jesse, I need more time with you.
Adam, we're going to have to talk again in 6 years, man. I don't know.
Much sooner, hopefully.
I can't believe you stood me up on Boy State. But that's okay. I'm glad we got back to it here.
I'll make it up to you, I promise.
Yeah. Likewise. We'll keep the conversation going. I appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
You too.